Hello, world, and welcome to the Des Child Show, your hour of encouraging talk and music. Spring has finally sprung, but it don't feel like it at all. I am still freezing, and the heater at my house is still set to 70 degrees. So when I don't have a humongous gas bill, that's the time when I will officially know it's spring. But anyway, I posted a survey to my Facebook page recently asking you, the listener, what your favorite concert was and why. And I got some really great answers and some really interesting ones. For some of you, you had to go back to the 80s to dig up those memories, so I hope you enjoyed reminiscing. I'm going to share some of those answers right after this song by For King and Country. So, as you know, I posted a survey to my Facebook page asking you, the listener, what your favorite concert was and why. And here's some of your answers. Jay says, I'd have to say 10,000 Maniacs and Tracy Chapman. This was in the late 1980s, and I was a little kid, so it was my first ever concert. The Maniacs were great, and hearing Tracy Chapman sing those songs from her brilliant debut album, which I still love, in such an intimate setting was really special. I'd never heard of her and can't hardly remember much from the show, only that it was really good. So good that the next day my older brother went and bought Tracy Chapman's cassette. No internet downloads or preview videos in those days. See, I told you many people had to dig up memories from the 80s. Tracy says, Chris Tomlin's Indescribable Tour, December 2012. So that's pretty recent. Just an amazing time of worship, she says, and what Louis Giglio shared was mind-blowing. I think that's Lou Giglio, or maybe it is Louis Giglio. Anyway, I did see one of his DVDs. Indeed, it was mind-blowing, especially when he got to the part about the laminin, which is, I guess, part of your DNA in your blood cells. So I highly recommend you look him up on YouTube because I'll just butcher the story. It's really impactful and life-changing, absolutely. He's the pastor of the Passion City Church in Atlanta, a pretty big church. A lot of big artists come in and out to do worship. OBB, who I interviewed before, has done worship there. Chris Tomlin, obviously. And I think they said David Crowder has done worship there too. So I'm continuing in your answers to my survey about what was your favorite concert and why. And Andy says the Casting Crowns concert in Philly last week. I heard so many good things about this concert. So many people posted about it. Andy continues, I don't think it could get any more worshipful than that. Wow, that's quite a compliment. The messages that were spoken between songs and the Lord being the center of the songs was just awesome. My friend Johnny wrote in, and jokingly he said Woodstock. Only kidding, he says. But I really enjoy the smaller shows and getting to meet the singers. My family and I love your music, Des, your singing, and the messages. And Johnny's also a big fan of Chelsea Music, who's one of my friends. She's pretty awesome as well. And we tend to do more intimate concerts where you really get to know us and we get to share our hearts. So it's not this huge big show. Well, hopefully one day we can do a more upscale show, but for right now, Chelsea and I and a lot of the local artists that I know, we're really into getting to know our fans and them getting to know us. So it's definitely a huge ministry. So, Johnny, you're too funny, and you probably did go to Woodstock. I know you. And thank you for being a fan of the show and my music. I heard so many great things, like I said, about the Casting Crowns show in Philly. And I would have gone, but I think I had my own show somewhere around here. It's been so busy here at the studio. I teach music full-time as well, and preparing for shows, and of course preparing for this show. And I really do enjoy it all. But sometimes I have to sacrifice seeing bands like Casting Crowns. But one day I will get to see them, God willing. But at least I get to hear them right here on the Des Child Show. Here's Casting Crowns. Getting back to the answers about the survey we posted, Steven said if it was 1978, I would have said Kiss. So we're not even in the 80s anymore. We're in the pre-80 areas. So wow, I thought my head was going to explode, Steven says about the Kiss concert. He said, now, the last show we saw was the Lift FM We Can Love concert. Not a bad seat in the place, he said. That's at the Chestnut Assembly of God. And wow, that was quite a different concert than a Kiss concert, Steven. So that's quite a jump that you made there. I really love being a part of the We Can Love event. It was a lot of fun and hanging out with OBB and John Waller and Unspoken and Wally. That was just the best. And since I love their music, let's play some OBB. My good friend Walt says, in 2013, I saw Paul McCartney in Seattle. And he says, what made it so great? Well, it was Paul McCartney. Yes, he is quite the legend, being in the Beatles and all. Who would have ever thought that a name like the Beatles would be a great fit for a band? It's like calling yourself the Bugs or the Creepy Crawlers or something like that. And yuck, I hate spiders, I hate bugs, and I hate worms. But I digress. John says, last Sunday night, the Thrive Tour, again, this is Casting Crowns. So many people loved this concert for King and Country and Laura Story. Lots of inspirational music and testimonies. Another person who was raving about the Casting Crowns tour. And since we already played some Casting Crowns, we're going to play some Laura Story for you right now.
Would you like to have Des play at your church, venue, retreat, or event? Well, she would love to come minister to you. You can find out more and make your request at DezChilds.com. That's DezChilds.com.
So continuing in this little survey I did about what your favorite concert is and why, Maria says, I have been to so few concerts in my lifetime because they are all so loud. But listen to what she says next, and it made me laugh. Hopefully it'll make you laugh too. She says, I have seen Tony Orlando and Dawn. And then she goes on to say, I guarantee you are not old enough to know who they are. Quiet Riot, I've actually seen them too. Mr. The Bangles, Billy Joel, James Taylor, Chicago, 3 times she saw them. Alanis Morissette, Taylor Swift, and Carrie Underwood. Now, if you go back to what she said at first, she says, I have been to so few concerts. But I'd say that's quite a few concerts, Maria. And I'm sure that Taylor Swift concert was pretty loud. I think you went to the most concerts than anybody who answered the survey. That's pretty funny. Jennifer says, the concert at PNC Bank this past July with my friend Jamie. She saw Train, Gavin DeGraw, and The Script. I guess that's all at the PNC Bank. She goes on to say that there was a nasty thunderstorm and it was pouring rain and a lot of lightning. But it didn't seem to faze Jennifer. She said it was good times. Lauren says Stephen Curtis Chapman. He's real. It's not all about performance. It's about God's truth and encouraging people and uplifting people, which leaves a lasting impression. And I love that, Lauren. That's great. It's all about your fans. It's all about your audience. It's not about the performer. She goes on to say he brought on tour with him the real man behind the end of the Spear movie. And I'm probably going to butcher this name, but it says Papua New Guinea native who came to salvation through Elizabeth Elliot's ministry. He shared pics. He was very real. It was just a life-changing concert. If you don't know who Elizabeth Elliot is, she was married to the famous missionary Jim Elliot. And Jim actually died on the mission field. He was killed. She has written a book called Passion and Purity, which was really life-changing and impactful for me. So I definitely encourage you ladies to look up Elizabeth Elliot and read some of her literature. Her testimony, her stories are just so amazing. Just a God story. And I'm going to play some Stephen Curtis Chapman right now for you. Enjoy. Michelle said, okay, my best concert was seeing Prince. And that must have been a long time ago. I purchased tickets to take a friend who was a big Prince fan at this time, around 1988, so it was a while ago. I liked his music, but was taking her for her birthday. Oh, how nice, Michelle. That was cute. But to my surprise, the concert was one of the best concerts I've been to. Prince played, and I was surprised. Even after 4 hours, he kept playing for another 2. Wow, that's a long concert. And Michelle goes on to rave about the Casting Crowns concert as well. She says Casting Crowns was the first group her daughter actually listened to. She explains that their heartfelt praise to God gave her daughter her first words, I guess when she was a baby. And when she received Christ as her Savior, she would listen to the Casting Crowns songs over and over again, and they became more than just a song to sing. That's awesome, Michelle. I think when a band is that genuine, no matter what genre they're in, they have a chance at longevity, because it's not about the fame all of the time, even though those things, I don't think anyone would deny that they want to be famous. But like she said, Prince played for his fans. And I think that's how all artists and bands should be in the music business. I actually heard Prince would practice 7 days a week for a while before going on tour. He didn't just rehearse for a week and then wing it on stage. He brought it each time in order to provide a life-changing experience for his fans. So if you're trying to break into the music business, focus on building a fan base, because that's where it's at. And you do that by connecting with people socially, emotionally, and musically. You got to get out there and build relationships. It's not all about signing that contract or getting a manager or getting onto a booking agency. That's all great stuff. But if you do all that stuff and you still lack the ability to connect with people musically, it's not going to work. So get out there and build relationships. It's the best way. And I say all this because I think that's what Casting Crowns has. And I think that's why so many people are raving about their concert. Casting Crowns, Mark Hall, they just love people. And you can tell that by the music they make and the show they put on. Jamie says, Celine Dion in Newark, New Jersey. I grew up listening to Celine, and she's one of my favorites. She also goes on to say Nicole Norman, she went to go see her in concert as well. And Nicole Norman is she is my favorite songwriter. And I think Sarah Groves is pretty much up there too. Her lyrics and the way her music is produced just takes me to a different place that I can't explain. I saw her with my sister, and I will never forget the concert and how it was just so simple. Like the Tracy Chapman concert that Jay was talking about. It was just her with a piano and a guitar player, and she just kept us engaged from beginning to end, just telling stories, and her songs were just so well written. I'll never forget that. I think that was more impactful than any other performance. I even went to go see the Backstreet Boys, and NSYNC, they just didn't compare. Even though I still love those guys and I love their music, but they just didn't compare to that one little show. Brian said, would it be cheesy to say the Des Childs and Mile 2 concert? And I said, no, Brian, I'd say that's pretty accurate. Brian is from the band Mile 2, and his band and I performed at a benefit concert recently, and it was pretty darn awesome, I must say. We had a lot of fun, and I really hope to do it again sometime. So Brian continues, back in 1991, I saw Rich Mullins in concert somewhere in Delaware. I just remember it was in a very large church, and it was the best blend of entertainment, great music, and worship I ever experienced. And I think it's really important that we do entertain the people that we're given, the audience that we're given in front of us. I think the word entertain has become kind of a curse word in the Christian world, because we think, being entertained means that we're not learning about Christ, or it's not biblical, but God does have a sense of humor, and he does like to have fun in a godly way. And I think we as Christians need to learn how to have fun as well. So great answer, Brian. Dan says, I saw Memphis Mayfire at the Troc on Tuesday. It was awesome. The Troc is a local venue here in Philly. I've actually been there a few times. It's a pretty big place. Kathy Tucker said she saw Building 429 with Royal Taylor last summer in Orlando as part of Illuminate. So I had no idea what Illuminate was or meant, so I looked it up. And it's actually a destination experience at Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Resort. That's exactly what it said. It's a 7-day, 6-night vacation that brings families together for a safe and memorable Walt Disney World vacation. and offers evening concerts with Christian artists such as Casting Crowns, Mandisa, I love her, Building 429, Sidewalk Prophets, Jamie Grace, and Royal Taylor, and they have a comedian as well. And they went on to say something really cool. They said, illuminate is what the Holy Spirit does to his children to make us more like Christ when he illuminates our hearts toward his will. And this comes from marketing director Zach Thomas, and he goes on to say we want families to experience that, the Holy Spirit, his illuminating presence. He wants families to experience that together while having a blast at the quote-unquote happiest place on earth. So he goes on to say this entire vacation may be summed up in 3 words: family, music, and vacation. So I think he sold me on that. I think I might talk to my husband and try to see if he wants to go on this vacation as well. Our last 2 survey participants, Al says the Promise Keepers gathering in 1990, so we're getting a little bit later, 1990s, in Philly, with 50 to 60,000 men, all fellowshipping, praying, and worshiping together. Wow, that must have been an amazing sight. And lastly, Claire says, back when I was dating my ex-husband, he took me to see Black Oak, Arkansas. So thank you everyone who participated in the survey. We're going to be posting some more, and we just want to get to know you, the listener and the fan. And if you haven't taken part in the survey and you still want to, you can look me up on Facebook, Des Childs, DEZCHILDS, or call us 1-856-244-1503. We would love to hear from you. So you probably heard me talking about The Rising, which is a youth Bible study at my church, and I go there every week because my husband is now a part of it and he's teaching, and it's become a ministry for him. So I take notes every week, and I want to share with you what we learned, because it's just every time I go there I come away changed and different. So I know St. Patrick's Day has come and gone, but we were talking, and this is actually a few weeks ago, and I didn't get a chance to share it with you yet, but we were talking about St. Patrick and what the real story was behind who he was and what he did, which was amazing. I never heard it before. And this holiday has become so distorted, and we've come so far from the real reason why we have a St. Patrick's Day or St. Patty's Day. We tend to separate the secular from the Christian, and this is so true. We have our Christian music, Christian rap, Christian pop, Christian hip-hop, Christian holidays and events. But St. Patrick's Day isn't about separating ourselves from the lost, but it's a charge to ascend the hill, in a sense. It's a charge to go out there and witness and not be a part of the holiday, but to be with people who need Jesus. We need to be a witness to the lost. And St. Patrick, as a youth, he wasn't a Christ follower yet, but he was English. He was not Irish. He was actually British. And when he was 16, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates. And Ireland, if you didn't know this, was filled with barbarians. He was sold to a herdsman, and he was a slave for 6 years. Oh my goodness. And it was here as a slave that he began to pray. And I think we always pray when we're in rough spots, and I was talking to the Lord about this yesterday, how I tend to come to him with more fervency when I'm just having a bad day, and that's how it was yesterday. But anyway, back to St. Patrick. He prayed 100 prayers a day and 100 prayers at night. Talk about dedication. So after those 6 years were up, he was finally free to go back home, and people at home thought, he was dead, but I'm sure he surprised a lot of people. So many years went by, and at 44 years old, he decides to actually go back to Ireland as a missionary. He had what's called a Macedonian call, and you can look that up in Acts 16. He had a vision from, I guess it was an angel called Victoricus, to come and preach the gospel in Ireland. And after having this call and this vision from Victoricus, that's a hard name to say, he became so passionate about it, and he was willing to go over there and lay his life down, kind of like Jim Elliot did. And something unique that St. Patrick did that nobody else could do was that they explained the Trinity to the Irish people. And he used the shamrock. The 3-leaf clover was the Irish symbol at the time, and it still is. And the shamrock has 3 distinct leaves, but yet it's one leaf. How awesome was that? That blew my mind. That was so awesome. By making this simple concept, thousands of Irish people came to understand the Trinity and eventually become Christians. So the speaker went on to say in Matthew 28:19-20, we're all given a call. Everybody who claims to be a Christian has this call on their lives. You don't have to wait for an audible voice from the Lord to tell you that you're called to lead people to Christ. It's not just pastors or leaders, it's the whole church collectively and to each of us individually. And he goes on to say, how can we fulfill the call? Number one, there's this intellectual approach that we can have. We can have information for the questions that they have. We can start conversations. But usually people have their minds made up already about what they believe. So don't depend on your brains all the time. People's hearts are where we ultimately need to go. Why do they believe the things that they believe? What happened in their childhood or adolescence that made them believe that? People ultimately love their sin more than they love the Lord. And number 2 is an invitational approach, kind of a come see for yourself. Offer food. Tell them we're having this church event and we're going to have all this food and people are really cool and there's this pool party or whatever. That's how my parents got me to church. They said, hey, go to youth group. They have donuts. They have these sugar powdered donuts. And that's why I went, because I love donuts. And still to this day, I love donuts, especially the ones at Dunkin' Donuts. And number 3 was testimony. How I came to know Christ. Because no one can take that from you. Personal stories are really very relatable. You should use a lot of personal things in your life to show them that, you're the same as they are. You have sin too, but you're forgiven. No one can say, no, that didn't happen to you. So think about that. That was really life-changing for me, and I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully it changes your perspective as well. Well, we reached the end of the Des Child Show. I really do pray that you are encouraged, blessed, inspired, and even challenged in this 1 hour together. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always contact me on Facebook, Des Childs, DEZCHILDS, or call us at 1-856-244-1503. If you're an indie band and you want to promote your upcoming project, we would love to hear from you. If you have a prayer request or a comment about the show, we would absolutely love to hear from you. God bless and have a great rest of your day.